So our goal for today is to upgrade Applied Energistics Autocrafting. But before we can tackle that, there's a few things we need to address from last episode. We added 8 more large chemical reactors into our chemistry room at the end of episode 40, and these machines handle the passive automation of polyethylene, polyvinyl chloride, silicon rubber, and polytetrafluoroethylene. We do need a place to store these chemicals though, and our current fluid storage room is not big enough to handle more tanks, so I spent some time between the episodes expanding it. Alright, so we got the fluid storage expansion completed. I think it definitely benefits from the extended range of the room, right? It looks a lot more in proportion. And I also left this middle section blank because I think we want to place a staircase here maybe, leading upwards. There is nothing built above this room yet, but eventually we'll find some use for this space. So yeah, to get everything connected, I collected the existing supply of polyethylene and polytetrafluoroethylene. We assigned the 4 chemicals their own space in fluid storage, and then assigned their P2P frequency to match the one on the output of the machine, which makes the chemical. So now anything that's produced out of these things automatically is sent to fluid storage, and just for the time being I've turned off or pointed the output hatch forward so that there's no polyvinyl chloride being made. With our very limited supply, I think it's over this side, chlorine, right? Oh yeah, 13 buckets left. With our very limited supply of chlorine, there's down to 9 buckets. With the very limited supply of chlorine, I want that to be concentrated to making silicon rubber. We need this a bit more than we need polyvinyl chloride. And there's also one more tank here, which you might notice, and this is diluted hydrochloric acid. This comes as a byproduct of making polydimethylsiloxane dust. There's actually a few chemical reactor recipes. I didn't point this out last episode, but there is a circuit 24 recipe, which normally it means a shortcut, and we're definitely using this shortcut here. If you go with the regular circuit 1, you have to make dimethyl dichlorosilane, and this is effectively the same thing except it's multiple chemical reactors, whereas if you use circuit 24, you can do the whole thing in one step with the raw ingredients. Doing it this way with the circuit 24 does leave us with this extra byproduct. So we definitely want some way to recycle this, because recycling this effectively means some extra chlorine. And as we've just learned, we are a little bit short on chlorine. So you know, the one thing we should have taken care of last episode but we didn't is rubber automation. We use a lot of rubber to coat wire into cable, and sure, we did just make silicon rubber, which can also coat wire into cable, right? But the think of the silicon rubber as a much more expensive version of rubber, and one that is also very necessary for the higher tier of cable. Things like tungsten and platinum has to be coated in either silicon rubber or styrene butadiene rubber. But as you've seen, we don't really have the chlorine to afford wasting it on the lower tier cable, things like redstone alloy cable. These ones can be coated in just regular rubber, so where possible we want to use regular rubber. And I really should have set this up last episode, but I thought, you know what, it's only one LCR. For symmetry reasons, we've put it on the left hand side. So now we've got a grouping of 3 LCRs, then 2 LCRs, then another 3. And to get this to work, we're going to have to add another transformer here. Yeah guys, do not look at this wiring here. I switched all of this over to the main power spine last episode, and having this many different voltages is not exactly ideal. But I mean, eventually we're going to overclock all of these machines anyway, and they should all be more or less the same voltage. Wait, let me think about what I'm doing here. Yeah, I want to transform MV to LV. That way it gives us more amps of LV, because we need to send LV down this way to power the machines on the end. And then we also want to power the new LCR we've just built here. Yeah, that should work. But all we have to do for this, I believe, is connect the output. Right, so this is going to make us regular rubber. And there should already be channels on this Fluix cable. we will have to assign rubber to a brand new fluid tank. I think there was one here we weren't using. Let's grab another super tank if we have one. We do not. Oh, you know what? I know exactly where we can find one. We can find one where the diluted sulfuric acid is, which should now be empty. We'll come on to that in a second, but diluted sulfuric acid now has processing. Oh, this just feels awesome at this point in the game, being able to just whip up machines, but we're getting close to the hour limit. That's Stormcraft, by the way. That happens so often. Yeah, we're getting close to our limit here on the amount of machines we can make because our circuits are kind of lacking. So I hope that's something we can address today. We're going to have to make another P2P. Okay, so this one we make rubber, and we'll make sure we lock the super tank. You can actually pull from NEI to lock the super tank. And I did mention last episode we don't have enough platinum for another stocking input bus. It turns out I managed to find some more acceleration cards. We just have to craft one for this machine. Yeah, the new rubber LCR is going to get a stocking input bus right here. So to make regular rubber, all we have to do is combine sulfur and raw rubber dust. So we can pull these into the stocking input bus, sulfur and raw rubber dust. Don't tell me we don't have any sulfur. That might be the wrong type of sulfur though. Oh yeah, it's the Gregtech sulfur we need. There we go. Next we'll add our machine controller and fluid detector cover. Redstone on, machine on, safe mode. And we'll set this to 2 buckets. It's a 30-second recipe, we're running this thing at LV. But remember, this is completely passive again. So now we should see rubber in the tank. Yes, we do. And now we have another fluid to add to our passive collection, rubber. Which I hope we can get to use today. We will see how far we get with auto crafting. Oh yeah, and remember the inputs for this, the raw rubber dust, we make from this centrifuge, which we set up 2 episodes back. And that will process the sticky resin, which our stick read gives us here in the farming area. Which we still have to fix, but don't worry, we're working on it. We are working on it here. And then one more thing here, we just added a distillation tower. It was very simple, just a small little 3-high distillation tower. And this will distill diluted hydrochloric acid into water and regular hydrochloric acid. And we just have a direct P2P connection. So from the output of the polydimethylsiloxane LCR, this P2P is directly connected to the input hatch here. In fact, we have it going into a super tank because this recipe is a little slow. I think I have it turned off right now. Yeah, it's 15 seconds. That's a bit slower than this LCR. So I have a little buffer tank just to make sure we don't void anything. That makes us hydrochloric acid, and that is sent to main fluid storage. And that is yet another chemical process off the list. I'm not really sure how to describe it, but I feel really great about where we are in the game right now. Even though there's still a million things on our to-do list. We are getting there, you know, we're getting... We have pretty solid infrastructure set up, all things considered. And our goal of the tier 7 rocket, a few of you guys were wondering how far away we are right now. So, and in the quest chapters, we've completed LV, MV, HV, EV, and 1 or 2 quests in IV. We still have the majority of IV to complete, all of LUV, all of ZPM, and these look smaller, but these are actually much longer than it takes from LV to EV. And then tier 7 rocket is in tier 8, UV. It's right here, I believe. So if I was to estimate, I would say we're about halfway to the tier 7 rocket. Maybe a little under halfway. I think this is going to be like a 100 episode series minimum. It doesn't mean, by the way, we're not going to go past the tier 7 rocket. That's just where the goalposts are right now. But yeah, speaking of the list, we can remove all of this stuff. All of these chemicals we just automated. And we might as well remove these, we don't need these. And now we have a blank canvas, it's time to fill it again. On with the next project. So for the next project, we're not only going to need a lot of resources, but also building blocks. And the main block we use for all the flooring in the base is moon rock. We are down to our last few hundred, so I took a trip to the moon. Also, thank you Tom Nichols for your comment last episode, you were spot on. Yeah, so I took the miners with us and set them up on various ore veins to try to be efficient with our time on the moon. A lot of the veins we can find on the moon are still in very high demand for us at the moment. We can grab things like galena, monazite, cassiterite, copper, bauxite and ilmenite, all of which would be nice to have a little extra of. So after setting up the miners, I used our trusty hammer and gathered lots of moon rock. And while on the moon, I made sure to gather enough moon rock for the next project, and also many more builds into the future. It was just a few hours after I came back from the moon, I noticed something really bad here in the base. So I went to open the terminal here and it was offline. And that, I think, can mean one of three things. The first is that we don't have enough channels to support the terminal here anymore. But that couldn't really be the case, right? I haven't messed around with any of the wiring underneath here, so nothing in theory should be different to when we left for the moon. The second possibility is a problem we faced before in GTNH, and that is chunk loading. So if you have an applied energistics network in unloaded chunks, especially if part of the network is in loaded chunks, i.e. half of it is in loaded, half of it is unloaded, that can cause some issues and it takes quite a while for the game to calculate again. But I did go through and make sure that all of the applied energistics system at least is chunk loaded. So again, it couldn't really be that, which leaves the most frightening option. the most scary option, and that is a lack of power. And that is particularly bad, especially if we want to expand applied energistics autocrafting, right? So if we grab our network tool, we can see just how much we're using passively here. Oh yeah, almost 1,500 EU a tick. Just passively, just for this thing existing. Look at all the P2Ps here. Yeah, look at this, all of the P2Ps drain 5 EU a tick. The storage buses are 70, but I guess that's for 14. The ME drives are 125 EU a tick, just passively. Interfaces are 45. Terminals are 5 EU a tick, it looks like. And that's just the main network. If we check the subnet here, this is using another 190. And not only that, we also have another network over here, the green network, which is using 69. And then we have a fourth network in our base, which is at ore processing, which has also been put through its paces after we got back from the moon. The white network here, which is the storage for all of the outbound to ore processing, is using another 152. And this is all just passive. Wait, we also have the black network here, I guess, which is another 177. I don't know what the total is when you add all those numbers up, but we must be getting close to our limit here, which is 2048. That is how much this Grandmaster Magic Energy Absorber generates us passively. And we do have a substantial buffer. Not only do we have energy cells, but we also have this. And I think this is now dropping, yeah. That is not good. That is certainly not good. that is definitely not good. So we appear to be pretty much right on the limit of how much we can expand our AE system. So that kind of leaves us with a choice, which we'll get onto in a minute. On a slightly more positive note though, I spent a couple of hours and I just sat down and enjoyed some building in this game. And it's been quite a while since I've done that. So if we take the main elevators here in the base, the very top is the terminals, then it's this wiring tunnel. Then we get to this middle catwalk, then the bottom catwalk, I guess, where the drives are. Next is the wiring tunnel, which we should all be familiar with. Then is inside the clean room. Then is the wiring to the clean room. Then we get to this room right here, which is brand new in the base. I spent a couple of hours on this, and yeah, it was a lot of fun to put it together, honestly. But you guys remember right when we started this Valley project, I said I might not have the skill to pull it off? I think that might be becoming evident here. I actually really struggled with this. I'm afraid what we've built here is a little basic, right? Like, there's not really that much to it, to be honest. It is kind of in proportion with the rest of the build. So if we look at what it was here beforehand, I actually took some footage before we started building this, and as you can see, there was nothing here, right? The first iteration of this build was very, I don't know what I was doing. I was just placing blocks. I ended up with some purple and some reds. I tried a few different colors, but ultimately it was not big enough. It was just not fit for purpose, so I decided to tear it all out and start again. And so this is what we managed to come up with. Of course, we still have some unfinished areas above, still have the ceiling to do, but I might try to tie this in with future areas. I did mention previously that I like to have things all interconnected, so it just so happened that it kind of lined up perfectly here with the clean room door. So I kind of broke a hole in the wall here. And then we have another elevator which takes us up to this cross, I don't know what you call it, intersection, I guess. And this is the elevator we took before. This goes up to our server room. This is a separate one, which also joins up to our storage room right here. So things are starting to become all interconnected. I love it. Then we have these catwalks, which lead us through to this stairway, which we use quite a lot. This takes us up to fluid storage, and then again we go down to ore processing down here. So this is yet another connection point, and we can see underneath here to the new room we've just built. And then I also included the water, which is, I mean, I don't know, it's just a little water feature inside the storage room. This also continues down the wall right here, which I thought was an interesting little feature to add. I think it looks pretty cool, right? So you might have figured it out by now, but this is basically for the first step in autocrafting. Which elevator stop am I supposed to be at? There's a few too many. This one. So this is for the crafting CPUs. Let's just make sure these are not crafting. And I wanted a room that was big enough so that we didn't have to worry about building as we expand these things later on. I want us just to be able to effectively plug and play with the CPUs so that and down the line we can just easily add some more. Now, as we've discovered, there are bigger problems to fix today. So honestly, I don't know if we can get on to doing this. But yeah, these are going to go right around here. Again, the crafting storage is determine how big of a craft, how complex of a craft you can request from your system. And the coprocessors determine how many steps in parallel AE2 can handle. I have also made some extra wiring tunnels underneath here. You guys know me with the wiring tunnels, right? Nice and clean, nice and straight. We do need to figure out a way to bring the cable down from the main controller right here. I was thinking about going through the middle, but honestly, this just ruins the whole look of this. And our flight potion's out. Yeah, this just completely ruins the look of this area. And sure, we could put some facades on it or whatnot, but yeah, I think we want to find another route down there. Anyways, it seems that Greg has put a spanner in the works. And our plans have changed, that is for sure. Okay, I really don't like doing this, but I think we don't really have a choice, right? What we're gonna do is grab this Master Magic Energy Absorber, which obviously powers the farm, but we don't have any item transportation, so these are gonna have to be taken offline. Not that they were online in the first place. We should have some spare creeper egg. If not, I'll go and get the other one. And then we should be able to attach this to the extreme voltage battery buffer. So this is an EV battery buffer, right? This one produces only 512. So it's a quarter of what the Grandmaster makes on the other side, this one. Let's make sure this is facing the right way. And even though it's less, we should see the power input go up to about 2,500, which we do. So now these should be gaining power, as long as they're not losing power. 3.81, let's see if this goes up. Yes, 3.82, okay. We're kind of in, we're in a safe zone here. As long as we don't add any more to the network, we should be stable enough. The last thing we want to do is have a complete blackout and be locked out of our applied energistics system. That would be really bad. Okay, now we need to come up with a plan to permanently expand the power situation. So right now, the way we get power mainly, other than that Grandmaster Magic Energy Absorber, which is purely for applied energistics, and ideally we keep the applied energistics system for power separate, but I think we're going to have to integrate it with our turbines here. And we have plenty of headroom here. We're not using anywhere near the amount of power we're generating, which is a good sign. The only thing is we don't have enough fuel production. So these turbines here run on benzene. I thought that was a different fluid there, but it's just a rendering error. Yeah, we're running this thing on benzene, and our backlog is pretty full right now, and that's because we're making good use of the battery system here. But if we start to hook this up to applied energistics and consume 2,000 EU a tick, and that's just the start, right? We're going to be expanding applied energistics. That is going to put some serious strain on our benzene system, which we haven't touched in over 20 episodes by now, I think. So all of this to say, we need to expand benzene. This is our new objective right here. Actually, there is some other options at this point in the game, how we can generate power. There's a whole quest chapter on it, in fact. We could go nuclear. I may consider that, actually. Although nuclear involves a lot of infrastructure, I'm not sure we're prepared for that yet. It's a tough decision, actually. Solar is not going to happen. Solar is just out of the question right now. It's just way too expensive for what you get. The other option is switching over to not the semi-fluid burner. I think it's this one. Yeah, the combustion engine. And this burns combustion fuels, right? So this burns things like biomass and cetane boosted diesel. Instead of benzene, it's a slightly different chemical process. The main thing we would switch to is high octane gasoline, but honestly I don't want to do this again. We done high octane gasoline in season 1, and I think this time we want to stick with benzene. And we'll just scale this until like ZPM. We need to come up with a plan on how we do that, because I was not prepared for this at all. So let me figure some things out here. And also collect the output. Oh, nice. Oh, nice. Yeah, I've been refilling these every now and then. It's nice to come back to almost a full chest of stuff. That's good. That'll help us. Alright, so the process to make benzene remains the same. We turn logs into wood tar and then distill wood tar into benzene. However, if we're actually going to upgrade the process, then we need to run the machines at a higher energy tier and overclock the recipes. But not only that, but also invest in a new form of the same machine to run the recipe more efficiently. I got part of the way through our checklist, which we'll go into later on, and I realised for the industrial coke oven, we need something called Tantalloy 61, which is an alloy of yttrium, Tantalloy 60 and titanium. The titanium we have, but the Tantalloy 60 and the yttrium, not so much. In fact, we have none. So herein begins the first of our detours, as always, right? So to make yttrium, it's obtained by processing rare earth. We're going to call it RE because I have some trouble saying rare earth. It's an advanced process, but for the first basic setup, it's in essence a chemical bath running sulfuric acid, provided with RE dust, which we can get from ore processing redstone and cinnabar. So for the time being, I added such a setup into our ore processing system. Very primitive, just an HV chemical bath. And this should give us the yttrium we need to get our coke ovens here. The next material we need for Tantalloy 61 is Tantalloy 60. And this requires a hefty amount of tantalum dust. And for this, I made sure to remove the filters for ilmenite processing, which we picked up from the moon, so that it's all kept as a crushed material and not processed any further. This crushed ore can also be sent through a chemical bath with sulfuric acid, and we get a 30% chance of ilmenite slag dust, which when we centrifuge gives us a 20% chance of tantalum dust, and some niobium, which we're kinda short on. So it's a bit of roundabout processing, but this should give, these extra steps here should give us what we need. Yeah, so after, well, I'm not sure how long, we got the tantalum we need for Tantalloy 60. Put through the alloy blast smelter for Tantalloy 61, and we can make our coke oven bricks. Or more accurately, structural coke oven casings. So if we break things down, the checklist is as follows: 1 GT++ centrifuge, 2 industrial coke ovens, 4 distillation towers, and a processing array for fluid extractors. Yeah, so the centrifuge we have crafted already, another GT++ centrifuge. I've made so many of these things recently. And this thing has to centrifuge air into nitrogen. We need nitrogen for the wood tar recipe. There is technically a circuit 9 recipe, I think, for wood tar. Let's see if we can find it here. It's circuit 9. But if you compare circuit 9 to circuit 10, not only does it cost more total EU, it also doubles the time it costs for the recipe. So it's more efficient if we also include nitrogen as an input. To make nitrogen though, there is a few different ways we can actually pump it from Triton and Pluto, which are tier 6 and 7 planets. So it'll be a while before we can get there. There's a bunch of electrolyzer recipes, but the most efficient way to do it is just to centrifuge air here. The way that we make nitrogen over here is using a bunch of LV machines, compressing empty cells, and then centrifuging compressed air. But this is of course not very efficient, right? Now that we can make IV components, we can craft what's called the air intake hatch. And look at this for a cost. This is 2 IV circuits plus a fluid regulator, which is another 2 IV circuits, and an electric pump at IV, plus an input hatch, and we need 2 of these things. I think we have the materials for 2 though. Input hatch, we should have a second fluid regulator, right? Yes, we do. So the air intake hatch, as I understand it, generates us 250 litres of air every tick. Let's find out. This might be a quest. Let's get 2 of these things. We need another great machine casing. There's the second one. So I think the way this works is we just have to not obstruct the front and it just keeps the intake hatch full. Yeah, you can see on the tooltip there, it's just filling with air. And this can be part of the multi-block, right? So that will give enough air for the centrifuge to run the recipe. That all then has to be sent into a coke oven. And this is what I meant by the same machine doing it slightly more efficiently. So the way that we're currently doing it is using pyrolyze ovens, these machines right here, which I am very surprised have not received any maintenance issues since we set them up. Yeah, from what I recall, it's only ever been this distillation tower and the rest have all been running fine. And it has been months since we set these up. But yeah, instead of the pyrolyze oven, we are going to craft 2 industrial coke ovens. This is what the tantalloy was for. So there's the first, and some fireworks. We should have the nano processors available for the second. We have the casings here, structural coke oven casing. And I just realized something a few minutes ago, in fact. So in the multi-block structure preview, it shows these heat-resistant coke oven casings. I noticed on the tooltip here though, we gain a 4% energy discount per voltage tier, and then process 12x materials with heat-resistant casings, which is the one we have crafted. Or we can get 24x materials with heat-proof casing. Yeah, we definitely want to make the most out of our machines. I'm going to assume it's this one here, heat-proof coke oven casing, which is pretty much just a bunch of steel. The one we had right now is bronze, so yeah. Unfortunately, that was a huge waste of bronze, and I don't think we can disassemble that one, but oh well. 15, the 16th one we have. So that's the gearbox casings, and then we craft it into the heatproof casing. I think we're safe to just shift click these, right? Yes, there's 16. And that's also our quest. Okay, so that will give us the wood tower, which will then go into a distillation tower. I have a bunch of distillation tower casing. All of these multi-blocks are going to be run at EV. I think there's going to be 9 in total. Or no, it's 8 in total, but we do need 9 energy hatches because of the processing of the energy requirements. We'll need a transformer from LUV to IV, for some reason a second quest. Our main power spine is LUV power, so we need to transform LUV to IV. And then we are going to need another transformer IV to EV, right? Let's see if we have one already. We do have one IV to EV, but this has to be high amp transformer. Let's think about what else we need here. We'll need maintenance hatches. I think we're a few short, but that's okay. And then input and output hatches. I think I've counted correctly. It's 29 inputs. Wait. That should be 29 outputs. Dang it, I made the wrong ones. I'm going to have to fix that. Oh yeah, and we're missing a distillation tower here as well. Do we have any by chance? We have so many random machines in our AE system that I just don't even know what we have anymore. So many things that we can recycle. Like, I wonder if we can maybe take stuff from our old... Yeah, look at this. Advanced gas turbines. We can probably disassemble these ones. Same with these basic gas turbines and these centrifuges. Steam turbines for sure we can disassemble. And at the moment, we've really only got an MV disassembler, right? It's been such a long time since I've actually used this thing. Like, we just keep it all in our AE system. And we don't ever end up recycling anything, but it's good every now and then to reclaim some of these circuits. Yeah, here. So there are a few other considerations, things like wiring, but that kind of depends on how far away we place it, right? From the main power spine. And this really is the biggest one. I feel like we're saying this a lot recently. Where on earth are we going to place this setup? And it is very common, especially here in GTNH when we have so many plates spinning at once. I mean, we have chemistry, we have crops, we have the forever expansion of ore processing, we have applied energistics to auto-crafting, and a few other things like Thumbcraft. We have to move our existing setups, like titanium and rutile, and then tungsten. Yeah, it is quite tempting just to stick it in a corner and make it work and rush the whole process. A bit like what we done over here with these machines, but these have lasted a little bit longer than I expected. And we don't want to do that, right? We want to make sure it's properly designed and we have all the functionality we need. So I've been doing a lot of thinking here, and I'm pretty sure I've narrowed it down to the northwest side, so this side. And we're going to place it through the wall over here. Probably in this section, behind this pillar. As you can see though, this is completely solid, so I'm going to have to do some digging here between episodes. Yeah, I didn't expect to have to do this, especially with all the building we've already done today here. But it's quite important that we take our time and make sure that we have the base the way we want it, and not just kind of rush through things. So yeah, I think that is a good point to wrap up the episode. Look at all the components we got just from those machines. We have a tiny bit more crafting to do for the fluid extractors, which are going to go inside the processing array here. And this will be for the final step we didn't talk about. So in the coke oven, we also get charcoal, and we can fluid extract charcoal into more wood tar, which can be distilled. I think we'll do that with MV machines. So we want to make a bunch of these MV fluid extractors. Surely there is some more MV machinery we can disassemble here. Yeah, there is. How many we can only get one. Yep, I'm going to have to do some more crafting between episodes. Yeah, these will go inside the processing array. Anyways, with that, thank you guys so much for watching, and I hope to see you all in the next episode of New Horizons.